Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin. You are tuned into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash, brought to you by Swiss American Trading Corporation. I have with me my co-host, Chris Agelastos, here today. Chris, how are you?
Doing great, thank you. A lot better than Iran the last week or so. Iran,
Well,
excuse me. My daughter will chastise me for saying Iran instead of Iran.
well, that's you actually just taught me something. I didn't realize there was much of a difference or to me, it's kind of like Missouri or Missouri. They're both the
That's-
same place, but
yeah,
so I'm wondering if that is an actual thing or if that's just kind of it depends on who you're talking to or which part of Iran or Iran you're from. I don't know.
that's
But
right.
anyway,
Yeah.
interesting. Just another thing to worry about out there. You don't want to say the wrong thing, don't want to offend
Don't screw
anybody.
up. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's it's kind of a mess over there. I mean, the
Yeah.
price of oil, and they're saying that with what they've done over there, it's the ripple effect throughout the entire Middle East in oil production
hmm
is crazy, and probably not going to be something. It's probably going to be something. I don't want to ruin anyone's day, but that we're all going to be paying for, ultimately speaking. So
Well, that's right. Yeah. Whether we're
we've got,
paying through BRICS, like our articles are talking about, or with the U.S. dollar.
well, our gasoline prices, and right, going
Yeah.
into summer when people do summer travel and by
hmm
air, by car. Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about BRICS. BRICS, let's see our article. BRICS member China announces this is a tough one, internationalization of the Chinese yuan. Um, so it's kind of interesting. Like when I saw this, it's like, okay, well, what does that even mean? Because the yuan has always been utilized. You know what I mean? Like
hmm
it's not. I understand the fact that there's been this de-dollarization taking place, and with that, where maybe China or other countries would have normally used dollars, now they're using their own currencies. But
hmm
what did strike me with this, and it talks about it, is that China has been at the forefront of what's been happening with BRICS, and with BRICS is still, which we'll get into here a little later, but they're pretty much still going full steam ahead. But yet
Yeah.
China felt the need to announce this, that they're doing this, with their yuan, this internationalization. And it's something that what I find interesting is that even because they are saying how, BRICS nations have kind of throttled back a tiny bit on the de-dollarization part of it, but yet, like Russia it says in the article here, has settled nearly 90% of their trade in China with local currencies. And
Yeah.
so I think that the takeaway for me on this, Chris, is I read the article and got into it. And I'll let you kind of share about it. But the takeaway was, we talk about BRICS and we talk about that de-dollarization, but now you've got this, and other countries may at some point do something similar to this. All is still the while, supporting the BRICS initiative, the BRICS alliance. But
hmm
it all speaks to the fact that the underlying the bottom line to this whole thing is the fact that there are other options out there other than the dollar, and these other
Yeah.
countries that used to predominantly, almost exclusively, trade in US dollars are now looking for other options, and they're comfortable using those other options, all of which is not good news for the United States dollar.
Yeah, I mean, China is obviously using everything that is going on internationally with the dollar, whether it's some of these conflicts or sanctions, and they're using this opportunity to say, "Hey, there's an alternative here. Our yuan is safer, more efficient. They're pushing for a diversified global payment system. Again, all of this just really means de-dollarization. But what I do like is at least China is out there saying, what their plans are. Unlike India that says, well, we're not planning on dumping the dollar. We still consider the U.S. a very valuable trade partner. Yet behind the scenes, we see what they're doing, and they're following, in the footsteps of China and other BRICS nations here, using their own currencies for cross-border payments, and even trying to expand the BRICS network to having their own currency, sort of like the euro, which I think the next article talks about a little bit. So, this isn't necessarily anything new, but I think China is really getting out there and saying, look, there is an alternative. We want it to be us. We're already doing a lot with our currency, and let's face it, most of the world does a lot of trade with China, right? Because they're such a manufacturing behemoth that I think with just a matter of time, we're going to continue to lose share, market share for the U.S. dollar, and people are going to be leaning towards the yuan.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that's very interesting. India, for instance, we've talked about this before. They say, okay, no, we're not de-dollarizing. We're on board with the U.S. dollar,
Mhm.
whatever. And then next thing you know, they're literally at the forefront of de-dollarization and working with BRICS. And when you're talking
Mhm.
about that, it made me wonder, like, do these countries, like, I mean, obviously it's really the rest of the world against the U.S., but like,
Yeah.
do they like the U.S. get upset when, like, they fib? Like, if you and I excuse me, if we had a conversation and said, like, okay, I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and then
Yeah.
in the very next instance, you're doing something completely opposite, I'm gonna for sure come talk to you and say, whoa, wait, what's happening here?
What
But
happened?
like,
Hey, bud.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
seems like these guys, like, we will read one thing, and then you turn your head and they're saying the exact opposite thing over here. And these are countries, like, they're not like, this is not like just a little one company against another little company. This is like major
Right.
commerce that we're talking here, and keeping the interconnectivity of international commerce, kind of going in stride or in rhythm. So I don't know. It is weird to me because there's been so many different contradictions. And to that point, actually, let's look at this next article. 5 BRICS currency ambitions. Now, to start with, for those of you who are new to BRICS or maybe new to this podcast, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So
Mhm.
India is like, we could say they're dead in the middle of BRICS, like quite literally, BR, and then you
Yeah.
have India, CS.
They're
And
surrounded. Yeah.
correct, like, why would we ever assume that they were going to minimize their role? They're literally the pioneer at the forefront of the whole deal. But
Yeah.
this kind of talk speaks to where I think there's really where a challenge for the United States of America with BRICS, and it is, again, you have to keep in mind, BRICS really is synonymous with de-dollarization, wanting to
Mhm.
utilize and depend upon the U.S. dollar less and less for two reasons. One, they're sick of being like the basically being told what to do by the West, by the United States. But the other thing
Right.
is, the more that they're not utilizing the dollar, they're able to bolster and strengthen their local or domestic currencies, which is great for them. But here's the thing: the 5 things, and I'll read them here quickly, and I'll let you talk about them, Chris. But they have launching of a
Yeah.
BRICS currency. They're already getting ready to launch the BRICS currency. De-dollarization. That they're all again, that's part of, like, their their whole focus, their goal, their aim. The local currencies, as I just mentioned, then BRICS Pay, a direct payment settlement thing for the central banks and member nations, and then a
Mhm.
digital currency mechanism. So, like, here's the point: they not only have these 5 objectives, but they have layers to their strategy, and their layers are actually working. And that's where, as much as there's been like a little bit of a throttling back of BRICS, these things aren't going away, and I don't see them going away anytime soon, because they're all in agreement that it's not only is it the direction they want to go, but it's working.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very well mapped out plan. One thing that I think some people are aware of, but maybe not everybody, is that they have been backing these BRICS nations have been backing all of their currencies with physical gold in order to have a good, stable, reliable currency. Something that is backed by a real tangible asset. And this is all part of their plan to de-dollarize. They're really looking to build in all of the tools necessary for local trade through their own currencies. They're building payment systems, and even again talking about creating their own currency. And I think I compare it to the euro because I think it's something that the euro is something people are familiar with, where you can travel through many European nations and use the same currency. And that's what BRICS is pushing here. So not only can they settle amongst each other with their own currencies, but they're looking at creating a group currency that they can all use. And I think once they get to that point, that's where the U.S. dollar is really going to have its days numbered. Because once there is this alternative that's widely being used between all the nations, looks to be stable, is backed by gold, and gives all the member nations advantages by being able to convert their currencies at less of a cost than going into the dollar, not limiting themselves to having to use the dollar also makes them, less susceptible to U.S. sanctions, and the way things have been going militarily across the world, and the U.S. is getting involved in all kinds of different conflicts right now. I think these are all going to be benefits to those BRICS member nations, and so it's speeding up. I don't think it's going to slow down. I think. I'm not saying the sky is falling tomorrow, but I think these are things that people need to be aware of, and one more reason to be diversified.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you bring up Europe, because in the previous article, the one we just talked about, that's one of the things with China, with them trying to do the internationalization of the yuan. They
Hmm.
talk about how they already approached the EU in terms of this effort of theirs to, get them on board with the acceptance of the yuan or yuan. Maybe that's the
Hmm.
same thing like Iran and Iran, like the yuan and yuan, um,
Yeah.
in Missouri. But
Right.
nonetheless, I mean, they approach Europe, and what's I think very significant about that, if Europe is indeed at all receptive to what China is doing currently, bear in mind China is also part of BRICS, and so
Hmm.
that may be open up a floodgate in terms of change in the U.S. dollar, because you'll find once that the yuan is in there, now you have the all the other currencies, meaning BRICS and other nations that could become part of the thing, and kind of the dismantling as well of where the dollar has played primary role for all these years now. So, well, Chris, thank you for all that information. And for those of you tuned in, if you'd like more information on the secret war on cash, gold and silver market, or just in general things that are taking place in the economy around us today, please feel free and either call or text us. You'll see our phone number in the show description, or you can also visit us online and request a free copy of all that information. Other than that, if you're not subscribed to our podcast, please do so, as we'd love to talk to you more in the future. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Take care.